All right, ready or not? Here we go. Let's see. Let me get this mic closer to my face. There we go. This should be good. All right, last time. Oh, I actually hit the fur. We made the fur last time. At least most of it. We may still make some tweaks once we actually try to render this out, but I want to do something else first. We're going to be focusing on some texturing this tutorial. Right, you can see Totoro has like the main part brown, grayish, and he has like this yellow fluff on the front with like some boomerang shaped things, I guess. So we're gonna be trying to add that to him as well. And when you're working with fur, you usually work with two materials, right? If you look at like humans, dogs, whatever, the skin is a different color than, of course, the fur, right? It's not actually the skin that has this texture; it is the fur that has that texture. So that's why we're going to be creating two separate materials as well. One is going to be for the skin, and the other is going to be for the fur. All right, so we're first going to start with the hard part, which is going to be this fur. And how we're going to do that is very simple. We are first going to hide the fur, even though we want this material to be on the fur. We're just going to be hiding it for now. Otherwise, it's going to get very slow and we're going to start painting on it. So hide that for now. And let's go to the modifier properties. And we're going to set this subdivision modifier to 1 as well for now. Otherwise, when we're going to be texture painting, it's going to try to texture paint on those subdivisions, take those into account as well. And it's going to be very, very slow. So if your texture painting is going to be slow, you probably just forgot to turn your subdivisions off or down to 1. It basically depends on what your computer can handle. Right, so just try that out a little bit. Now we're gonna open up a different tab. It's by just swiping it to the left there. And we're gonna set this to the shader editor because we need a shader to add a texture. It's as easy as that. All right, so let's click on new. We're going to create a new material. And right away, we're going to get this principled BSDF. And for now, it doesn't really matter what this material is going to be. Okay, we just want it to be like a placeholder. All right, so how do we add a texture? We've done this plenty of times now. I'm going to select the principled BSDF and hit Ctrl T. And there we go. We will get a nice mapping set of nodes with an image texture included. Now, up to this point, we've pretty much, well, we've actually did it with the eyeballs. Like we painted on that with the stencils. Remember the blood vessels. So you know how it works, but we're just gonna go through it again because nobody really remembers the first time, right? So we're gonna select new, and we're gonna name this the Totoro pattern, right? And here's the important part. Here's where we define the resolution of this pattern. All right, so you may think that the higher the better, but it's not always the case, and definitely not in this case, because we are going to be adding this texture to the hairs, right? So there's no reason at all to make this that high of a quality, because the hairs are going to be sticking to the sides, they're going to be random, they're going to be chaotic anyway, which means the texture doesn't have to be that perfect. All right, so we're going to leave this at 2K, so 2048 by 2048. Usually when I paint textures that don't involve hairs, I go to 4K or even higher, depending on how far you're going to be zooming in. But 2K is all we need now. And the base color is set to black, and we're going to set this to like the base color of Totoro, which is, if we can swipe this to the left a little bit so we can see, like a brownish gray. All right, so I have to do this again now. Totoro pattern 2048. 2048, and make this like a dark gray brownish color, something like this, and just hit OK. That is that, and all we need now is to make sure that this pattern is actually saved as well, right? So you may now think that now that you created a pattern, it automatically saved, and well, it doesn't. So we have to switch this over to the image editor. We have to open it up here, so click on the little button on the top next to new and search for Totoro pattern. Mine duplicated, so I'm gonna set that to 0.001. That's the one I actually want to use. And we're gonna go to image and then save, and just save it as like the Totoro pattern name that you want. So I'm gonna name this Totoro pattern brown, I guess, and then .png, of course. And now just go back to the shader editor and make sure that the right pattern is actually selected. And I can just open this up as well, because we have saved it, so I can now just select it from else, and then it will be the same pattern that we just saved anyway. All right, so let's go to the left window, and let's switch this over to texture image editor. No, wait, I'm at the wrong window. We have to go to object mode and set this to texture paint. All right, so we are going to get that brownish color right away. And you can see it if you go to the materials tab on the right there. We can see that the base color of material 2 is brown, because that's what we made this texture. All right, now we still have this pattern, this blood vessel pattern enabled. So we're going to disable that by swiping to the right a little bit. And we're going to hit the texture drop down on the top and just hit the little X there to just get rid of that stencil. We're not going to be using that. We're going to be freehanding this pattern. All right, so before we do that, I will inform you that I'm not using like a drawing tablet or something like that. I'm just going to be using the mouse, which is fine for this. So if you don't have like a drawing tablet thingy, that's totally fine. No worries. All right, so now we want to draw some color on here. And there's two ways to go about this. We can actually draw in the color, or we can draw in white. Okay, so if we draw in white, we will be using this texture as a mask. So that means we can add a separate color later, right? And that means we can change the colors individually as well. The second way is to just paint on this color right away, which gives us a little bit less of, a free hand. Like, we can't really change the colors later if you want. So what I am going to do is try to combine both of them a little bit, right? So we now have this brownish color. I'm just going to paint on it with, it is now set on red. I'm going to change it to like yellow. And because we have this high contrast anyway, we can just, with a color ramp, tweak that later if we want, which is perfect. All right, so I'm going to first check my UVs. All right, and there was a question about this sometime earlier this week. What should you start with, texturing or UVs? So before you start texturing anything, so before you start drawing now, you have to check your UVs. With poor UV maps, you're not going to be able to paint properly. All right, so if I hit tab on Totoro and hit A, and I'm going to go to my right window and set this to the UV editor, you can see that these are the UV unwrapped faces, right? And this doesn't match the shape of Totoro at all. And we have some weird triangles going on and some weird lines there. No clue how this happened. But this is basically what happens if you start from like a cube, subdivide it, extrude parts. Then Blender doesn't know how to UV unwrap it anymore, right? So it's just gonna work from a cube and then just split the faces up right there. All right, so this is pretty much a cube that is, well, half of a cube that's unwrapped, right? So if you mirror this to the other side, you get this cross shape, which is pretty much already like the shape of a cube. All right, so we have to somehow fix that. Because if we don't, and I go to texture paint now and I draw on this, you can see what happens, all right? We get this weird artifacts going on, and that's because the UVs are, intersecting and stuff, and we have some very close-cornered UVs there, right? They're very close together, so things are gonna overlap, and that's gonna look poor, right? So if you're ever just if you're ever texture painting, and you're getting these weird artifacts, it means that your UVs are just messed up. All right, now there are multiple ways to fix this. The easiest one that you can try first is pressing tab in the left screen, press A to select everything, press U, and then just press unwrap. All right, and basically it will unwrap your geometry with the shape that you have now, right? So it's no longer a cube, it actually follows the shape of the mesh. And this is actually not looking bad at all. And that is because we have quite a nice geometry set up from the start, right? We worked with quads, which are faces with 4 vertices. And it basically means that we have quite a decent geometry. So we can just try texture painting on this. And that's actually exactly what we're going to be doing as well. So let's just try this out first. And if it doesn't work, we can try UV unwrapping. So Vesta says Totoro has strange holes. Strange holes on the UV mesh. Well, these aren't actually holes. If I zoom in more and more, you'll see there's an ambulance going. You can see that there is like some kind of mesh there. I think those are the arms. So usually when you're gonna be painting on the arms as well, this is not gonna work that well because we have to zoom in all the way. This is gonna lose all detail from the texture. But because we have no actual texture on those arms, right? There's no yellow part or whatever. We don't really need to worry about that. We only need to worry about this belly part, right? So we could just get away with those basic UVs. All right, but because we are learning, I will show you how to get a better UV map anyway. All right, so this works fine. It basically split it, I think, in like the side view, like this. We have like Totoro. This is the main body. We've got an arm up here. We've got a leg up here, and that would stretch down. Then we've got like the ears, and I think those are the eyes. And then we have this part, which God knows who. Oh, that's the mouth. Right? It goes in the UVs, it goes out. All right, so that's pretty much this UV. It's not perfect at all. All right, so if you want to fix that, there needs to be done something manually, right? We need to be adding seams. And seams, well, they are quite easy. Think of this as like something that is sewn together by a grandma. So where would like she stitch together several parts? And you can look at your own like t-shirt, the arms, the sleeves. They are like sewn on to your main part of the body, right? The sleeves, and for the trousers you have like this sewing line in the middle, stuff like that. So think about that. Usually at the arms there will be like a separation line. All right, so for example, if I go to my X-ray mode, which is Alt Z, we can see a nice starting point for the arms is going to be, well, perhaps there, or maybe just pick the first part there, the first loop in the arm, and right mouse and just mark this as a seam. All right, so now this is going to be like a part where it's going to be split, and this is going to be two parts of the UV now as well, right? If I now press A, U, oh, that's the wrong button, A, U, unwrap, you can see that's now going to be unwrapping in two parts already, right? So it's splitting it at the arms. I'll swipe this to the left a little bit, make this a little bit smaller, it's in my way. There we go. So you can see that's already splitting it up, but it's not quite that well just yet. All right, we can do the same for the legs. So get that first loop, right mouse, mark seam. And now we pretty much have to define what other parts of this mesh we can use to split up the mesh. All right, so you can now think about how you would unwrap this in real life, right? So if you have a cylinder, how would you unwrap that? Or how would you fold a cylinder from a piece of paper? That is the best question to ask yourself. You will pick a piece of paper, an A4 paper, and you will just roll it up, right? Which means that a cylinder can be made from like a squared plane quite easily. It just needs one cut, right? If you have a cylinder and you cut it, just in the middle, it will unfold into a plane, right? It's that easy. That's pretty much how UVs work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the top lines here, this one, and actually let me just press Alt Z real quick and just disable X-ray. So select this one, this one, this one, this one, all the way up to the part where you want to unwrap it, right? So what is the last part of the cylinder? It's gonna be this loop right here. So right mouse, and then mark seam, and then double click on the hands right there, and include this one as well. So by holding shift, make sure the entire loop is selected, right mouse, and just mark that seam. That's looking great. Our arm will now be unwrapped quite nicely. Now we can do the same for the legs, and we can do the legs all the way to the bottom, right? Because this part is all cylindrical. So double click that, hold shift, and keep double clicking until the entire bottom part is selected. Right mouse, mark seam. And now let's just select one more edge loop. This, and this. Remember, we need one cut. Right mouse, mark seam. Right, let's see how that looks. If I'm gonna press A, U, unwrap now, you can see that our arms are now unwrapped nicely, like they're actually unfolded. Right? So if you will fold this, if you have this shape as a piece of paper and you fold it up, you'll basically get this arm. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Now we still have some weird parts here around the mouth, around the ears, stuff like that. We can follow the same steps pretty much, right? So what's going to be the first part of that ear? I'm actually going to select this entire loop. That is pretty much where the ear starts, and the last one is somewhere there. Alt Z to see if you select everything. Right mouse, mark seam. There we go. And let's press Alt Z. Now we need one more at the top as well. We can see this ear as a cylinder as well. Right? Try to see everything as cubes or cylinders, whatever works. Alright, so I'm gonna select this one, and where is that one? This one. So this entire top part basically, right? And that one. That's looking fine. Right mouse, mark seam. That is looking great. And let me just swipe this to the right again. I hate working on like a 1920 screen when I usually work on a wide screen. It makes the space very limited. Alright, next up we need like one line to unfold that again, and I'm gonna pick the side here. That one, and that one, and that one, that one, and that one. Right mouse, mark seam. Beautiful. Now we can just continue that line to the shoulder. Right mouse, mark seam. The reason why is because we have a nice seam right there, and we've got a nice seam on the side right here, and one on the ear as well that basically follows the entire part of the Totoro. Now we can also just connect that in the middle. Make sure it stays nice and clean. Let me see, that one, and that one. And I forgot this actually. Right mouse, mark seam. Wrong button. Mark seam, there we go. This is quite boring stuff, I know, but it's very important for if you want to make like characters for games, props, and stuff like that. Everything that needs a UV and you want to be using in a different program needs proper UV unwrapping. Alright? Now, what we could do is also just connect this at the arm right there. That will make this all very nice and clean. But we're just gonna see how this works first. So press A, U, unwrap, right? You can at any point just unwrap it and see how it looks. Alright, so now we already have a way better UV unwrap, right? We have got the body part and it ramps nicely at the head side. And the ears are now separated as well, which means that whenever a part of your UV gets bigger, alright, it's also going to be more detailed. You'll be having more detailed textures on that as well. The smaller things get in here, the less detail you will have in your textures, right? So I'm just gonna go through this quickly now. You know how it works. I'm gonna select this eye right here, right mouse, mark seam, right? So that seems like a nice sharp splitting point for the mouth as well. I'm gonna select this inner one right there, right mouse, mark seam. And let's press A, U, and unwrap this again, just to see how it looks. Right, so now everything seems to be unwrapped quite alright. We've got the, let's see what this part actually is. Maybe the inner mouth, yeah. Right, so we're not gonna be texturing that quite yet. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. What we can do is press Alt Z and just add this back part of the throat, right? Remember we made that throat. We want this back part to be included in the UVs as well. Mark seam. And then we could just double click on this top part. Oh, that's going to take us entirely around Totoro. So select the first edge there, hold Control and select an edge right there at the back. And it will find the shortest path of edges to that point, which is very useful. Now hold Shift, select the front one, and just hold Control and go all the way to that front part right there. Beautiful. Right mouse, mark seam, press A, U, unwrap. There we go. We just split up that inner part of the mouth beautifully. And I think we now have something to work with, right? The fingers and the hands. And this is the only part that is being a little bit dodgy right now. You can see that we still have this part, which are the fingers. Or at least like the starting points of the hand. Let's really quickly fix that as well. We're almost done. Don't worry about it. Just gonna select this entire edge loop, right? It's all about finding edge loops. Mark seam, and let's just select this one as well. Right mouse, mark seam. All right, and then for each part where those fingers go in, just hold shift and double click those. Right mouse, mark seam, and now all we need left is the thumb. Right mouse, mark seam. AU unwrap. See how that looks. All right, so now we have all of those parts unwrapped separately and looking nice. All right, so let's work with that, shall we? Now you can see that because we changed the UVs and we already had like a texture in there, the parts of that texture are also going to move. All right, which is something you have to keep in mind. So if you make textures, if you add nice looking textures on your model and you change your UVs afterwards, it's gonna mess up your entire texture. All right, so always UV unwrap before you texture and make sure your UVs are well adequate for what you want to do. Right, we didn't need to unwrap it completely here because all we're gonna do is texture this stomach part, right? But if you have like a model that needs to be textured everywhere, you need to make sure that all parts are unwrapped properly as well. All right, so now you may at least have some kind of an idea of how to do that. Next up, there's actually one thing that I want to change. All right, just one quick review of this, and that's well, we have this nice sideline going on, and I just marked this back part of the leg. I want that to be the side as well, so I'm going to select those and just mark seam. Actually, let's clear that. Actually, right mouse, clear seam, and let's just select this side part instead. Why not? Right mouse, mark seam. Beautiful. Now I'm just gonna press AU unwrap. It's gonna unwrap it a little bit differently, but still pretty much the same. All right, that's looking great. Last part I'm actually just gonna do is select this entire side part right there. Right mouse, mark seam. Right, so we have that entire side going on from bottom to top. AU unwrap. All right, so it's gonna be unwrapping even differently. And this is looking perfect. All right, so press tab and let's just start painting on Totoro now. Let's see, we have symmetry enabled in the Y direction, but we're working in the X direction, so we have to switch that from Y to X. Now we can just start painting, right? Start painting that nice looking yellow part. Wherever you need it, you can add it. All right, and you can remove it as well. But I'm just going to try to do this in one go. I'm not sure how it goes. I think it goes all the way to the legs, actually, right? So we need to be adding it here. And you can see that texture painting is not really dependent on your mesh, right? Even though our mesh looks like squares, we are still going to be able to just add a nice, smooth-looking texture on Totoro, which is nice. I'm going to add it somewhere like there. I don't know how it goes right here, but I'm just gonna take a guess, right? And make it nice and round here as well to place some emphasis on that thick looking belly. Just like that. That's looking quite decent, I'd say. Now, if you want to add like those lines, we just can change the color, right? So I'm gonna select this and just try and go back to that brownish color that we had before. Maybe even a little bit lighter. It's gonna be fine. We can change this afterwards, don't worry. If we don't have the perfect color, it's gonna be alright. Something like that. And now we're just gonna paint in these things. These boomerang looking shapes. And to do that, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. Alright, so I'm just gonna zoom in here. I want one in the center, which means I have to go down there, go to this inner part. And because we are doing this for hair, it means we don't have to make it perfect. Remember that. The hair is going to be chaos anyway. Make it look like this. Beautiful. This is all drawing with the mouse, so we can't get it to perfection anyway. Like that. Yeah, that looks like it. And then we need 4. A little bit lower. That's too close. Something like there. Boomerang. 1. And then 1 more. Maybe it goes a little bit to the side. Right there. Beautiful. That's looking nice. All right, let's go to object mode and let's see how this looks with the fur. All right, so now that we have a texture, there's one very important thing to do. right? And I told you this before, and I'm gonna keep telling you this, well, always, because I keep forgetting it as well. If you go to your UV, your image editor, and you go to the image, and you see this little star icon, it means you haven't saved your texture. And if you now close Blender, your texture painting will be gone. Right? If you restart Blender and you didn't save it, it will be gone forever. So make sure to image and save that. Alright, so now that star disappears and you can see it saved it to that PNG file, and now you can breathe again. Alright, so let's go to the shader tab on this right side, and let's just hit the render view, see if the textures are working. Alright, so you can see we got some crisp looking textures, and now we can enable the subdivision again. Set this to 3. We got our smooth shape back, and we can enable our fur again as well. There we go. And now you can see that this texture is actually portraying on the fur as well. And now you can see exactly why you don't need to worry about having this too crisp of a pattern, because those hairs are going to be overlapping, they're going to be going outwards, inwards, they're going to be curling, stuff like that. So you don't need all of those straight lines. Alright, so don't worry about that at all. Now, we need some hair material, right? Let's see how long we have. Oh, we got a few minutes left. Alright, so we have the principal BSDF. That's the default material. If you press Shift A and go to the, where is it? The shader, we have a whole list of things we can use, and there's going to be one beautiful thing that's called the principled hair BSDF. Alright, so that is the one we use for hair. And there's also a hair BSDF, but I never use that. I always use the principled BSDF. Alright, so select that, and now we can just connect the Totoro pattern to the principled hair BSDF pattern. There, and then connect this surface to the output. Alright, and you can see right away that the hair material is going to change. Alright, we're going to be having some index of refraction going on because hairs are weird. Right, hairs aren't easy materials, they're always being a little bit weird. And we've got a roughness, a radial roughness. We've got an offset, random roughness. We got all these kinds of things. And if you increase the code, you'll get more of your color back. That is one thing that is quite nice. And we're going to be playing with the roughness. I usually, when I work with animals, I increase that roughness. Because animals have rough hair, right? They're dirty. They don't really use like shower gel, conditioner. They don't have like this shiny. So we're going to be increasing this roughness quite a lot. And radial roughness as well. Something like that. That is looking better already. But we are losing a lot of color, alright? It's becoming almost gray. What I'm going to do first is delete this principled BSDF so we can swipe this up there. And I'm just going to press Shift A, search, and I'm going to search for a hue and saturation value. And just add that in between. And this is going to mean that we are going to be able to add some more saturation to the color. Alright, so hold Shift and swipe that to the right. And you'll see that we're getting more of that color back. Now don't overdo this, of course. You don't want to have like this yellow, completely yellow stomach. Alright, and then you can change the other values as well. You can even change hue if you want green, I don't know why. And you can change the value to make this darker again. But usually, I just try to do it differently. Alright, so press Shift A and search for a color ramp. And swipe that in between. Now, our colors are going to change to black and white. Because we have a black left and a white right. And that's corresponding with like the dark and bright colors of the texture. Alright, so this black part is going to be the brown that we had, and the white is going to be the yellowish that we had. So now we can change these colors to what we need, or what we want. So if we swipe this to the right, you can see that it is all going to be a little bit more of a contrast. Alright, so if you have this all the way to the left, it means some of this white color is going to be in the blacks for some reason. And that's why we need to just swipe this to the right a little bit. And that's how we get that darker color back. Just like that. Alright, so if you want to change this color now, you can just click on the blackness there and just move that more to a brown. There we go. Easy as that. And just find a color that works well enough. And we're gonna do the same for the whites. You can even move this more to the left. It will be more hard, like the overlap between brown and white will be harder. Move this to the right and we'll have a little bit of a softer flow. Right, so I'm gonna move this to the left a little bit more so we get a little bit harder edge. And I'm gonna change the color to more of a yellow. Zoom out so we can see. Maybe a bit orange. Yeah, that looks nice. That looks nice. All right, beautiful. Now, these hairs, they are thick as fuck. So we're gonna be increasing that thickness a little bit. So go to the particle settings and let's scroll all the way down to where is the render tab? Did I miss it? There we go. No, we need the shape. The shape. Hair shape. There we go, all the way at the bottom. And the defaults are 1 meters for the root and 0 for the tip. And that's too thick, pretty much all the time. So we're gonna change this to like 0.2. I have like a standard thing that I try first, which is 0.2 and 0.05 for the tip. And we need a lot more hairs now as well, right? So this is where your system is gonna be having some issues. All right, make sure to save it first, because if it crashes, you'll at least have a saved version before you messed up. All right, so let's go to this. I'm getting Discord messages from you guys. All right, let's go to the display amount and just try 50 first. And the render amount 50 as well. You can see that it's already, that gets a little bit thicker, right? A little bit of a thicker coat. Now for the render, I would set this to like 100. And I think my system can handle that for the display as well. It won't be too hard. I hope. There we go. So now it's at like 100 and it still works fine, right? I can zoom in. I can do whatever. It still renders nicely. All right, so that's not looking bad at all. We've got like this blank space right there at the middle, which is just because we have no hairs there. We don't have a lot of hairs. We made it short. That's why we have this little bit of a lack of fur there. Same thing for the ears, right? It's all lacking a little bit of hair. So what we can do is just change this to 10, for example. We can go to viewport shading. We can go to, where is it? Keep clicking the wrong button. Let's go to particle edit. And now we can just hit that plus sign. And we want to make sure to enable interpolate right there, because now our particles will try to follow the shape of the hairs we already have. And we can just add more hairs wherever we need. There, a bit more here. Right, parts that we're just looking a little bit left behind, so to speak. You can just add more hairs, just like that. Make sure to do it on both sides, of course, because the particle settings, the system is applied after the mirror modifier, so we need to do this on both sides. Now, this middle part of the face as well, we made it like a split there almost, right? Like the hair split apart to left and right, so that's why we got the split in there as well. Something like that. And let me actually get that comb brush, right? We can still change those hairs, so that's nice. So move that out a little bit. This is where you can make the most of your adjustments of the hair. Right after you have the materials and stuff like that, you can perfectly see how it looks. Now let's go back to object mode, and we have a slight issue. We do. We have some hairs that are sticking out very poorly, and that is because we just made edit to the hair while we already have the all of the settings going on, which is a little bit annoying, but not unfixable. Let's see. We can delete the edit, and now we just have to brush this again, which is quite annoying. So let me see if we have a different way to fix that. Let's play around with the modifier stack for a sec. Just reset it. And the modifier stack, let's try to move this around a little bit. There's always something going on in these particle settings, believe me. Just gonna hit Ctrl Z a few times. All right, so note to self, we need to be adding the particles, the extra particles. I should have checked that before we're actually gonna make those changes. That's quite annoying. I don't know why that happens, but here we are. All right, so we can just delete that edit, and well, we can just see how it looks now. All right, beautiful. No, not at all. We're gonna make some very quick particle edits. I've done this loads of times, so I should be able to do this quite quickly. Right, so don't make my mistakes, at least not the next time you're doing this. Make sure to just add more hairs from the start. Should be a nice thing. All right, so once we have done some more grooming right here, and you can see that I'm rushing through this on barber tutorial number 1. Just gonna move this to the side. There we go. Remember to look at the sides of your mesh as well. You can't always be looking at the front only. There we go. Legs down to the side a little bit. Beautiful. Let's add some length. I may just make this even crazier than last time. I want some more length at the bottom there. And set this to grow. Grow those hairs out nicely. There we go. Add some nice length. Beautiful. At the head as well. Oh, more hair here. And it's also the time to just try to get that hair better. Right? It's always good to make some revisions and matter. Alright, there we go. Now make this nice and curly. There we go. And let's move this to the back a little bit. This out. Make sure that this doesn't overlap with the mouth like we did last time. And let's just cut those hairs on the eyeball. Right, so once you've done this a time or two, you'll be able to go through this in a matter of minutes. And there we go. Right, we did better. All right, so let's crank this up to 100 again and see how it looks. All right, that's looking better. We at least have some cover at the ears. We may need to crank down that size a little bit. Easy enough. We can just shrink the length of those hairs. Right, just shrink that there. Shrink this part around the ears. We don't want that to be looking too crazy at all. And just move that up. Like follow the hair of the ear. Follow the shape of the ears. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Let's go to object mode. And I think this is going to be it for this tutorial. We got the main parts of Totoro. I may do some revising of the hairs to make it look a little bit nicer. You can do it as long as you want. Right? Be the barber you always meant to be. Fine. All right, something like that. That's looking fine. All right, so we got some nice long hairs. Long hairs are always. I know, but you can keep tweaking it, and it's gonna look fine if you spend some time on it. I had like 3 minutes now. So if you have the time, make sure to tweak those grooming things as long as you want. For now, I think that's going to be it. I will show one more thing actually, because once we get into like the hair materials and stuff, I always like to play around with my HDRI. All right, so we can just go to the world shading and just go to the mapping and just rotate that around to Z. Because I don't like the current shading we have. It's too plain. So what I'm going to do instead is just open up a new one. And you can play around with that as long as you want as well. So add a new HDRI, maybe some stronger lighting. What do we have right now? Whipple Creek. All right. So I'm going to set, let's see, Table Mountain perhaps. All right, so now we have some stronger lighting, and it usually works better with hair as well. All right, so we can then just rotate it if we need. If we want it to come from the left, for example, we can make it happen. All right, so that's pretty much it for hairs and texturing for hairs. Next time, I will have fixed this hair particle system. I will have it in a better shape. We will remove this hipster bush, as Maple called it. It will be groomed. It will be visiting the barber. And next time we're gonna be working on. Actually, let me press Alt H and get those eyeballs back. Because they're looking hella cute. Let's look at that. Nice. All right, so we're working on that. We will groom those eyes a little bit more so it can actually see. And we'll be adding some teeth as well because Totoro has to smile at some point, of course. So we need those. And we may add some toes as well, right? So then we pretty much have Totoro done. And we can continue with some background, some scene elements, right? So we're going to be also getting into the environment aspect of 3D modeling, which is going to be a lot of. Oh yeah, we still need the tail. I keep forgetting that. Yeah, we'll do that. we'll add a tail. No, it doesn't. Nothing for the hair really automatically. And especially because we already had like the editing. I can't believe I forgot about the tail again. We it is not time efficient at all to add the tail in the same mesh. So if I was modeling this right now, I would simply just add a tail, connect it to this body, but make it a separate mesh, right? So we can control the tail separately. And because we're going to be having a lot of hair on this back anyway, it's going to be blending in perfectly. So we at that point, we're going to be having a separate tail, but it's still going to be following our movements and the armature of the Totoro. It's going to be moving with it as well. So remember, it'll be pretty much like an extension of Totoro, I guess. So there's going to be like a little tutorial on that as well. So I think that will be fine. Any other questions? Yeah, they're becoming. Yeah, UV unwrapping is a little bit difficult, but once you see, once you pretty much try to do it more often, you'll get an understanding of. If I disable this, right, you can see like what parts are going to be unwrapped, like spheres, or so like cylinders, for example, right? So these arm parts, they are cylinders. Everything that's cylindrical just needs two endings, right? Two endings of the paper, and it needs one cut. And you can add two cuts as well. It will unwrap perfectly the same. One or two will be fine. And then for the rest, you just have to try and think about basic shapes, right? How can you see this ear? It's pretty much like a hexagon, which you can see as a cylinder as well. So I followed the same route for the ears as well. And then for anything that has a sudden change of direction, for example, this edge right there goes into the eye, that's always a good part to UV highlight as well. Same for the mouth there. And then I just added one for the mouth at the seam right there as well, because once again, you can see the inner part of the mouth as a cylinder, right? A cylinder that goes down the throat. Same for the leg. And then I just connected the seams in the middle part right there. Otherwise, it's going to be unwrapping the middle of the Totoro as a sphere still, and we want that to be unwrapped like two parts as well. So now we have the front side and the back side of the Totoro separated. So you just want to try to keep it flowing nicely and think about those basic shapes and how to unwrap that. It's going to be hard the first few times. What do you mean? Did you already apply the mirror? Yeah, you can just pretty much. Wait, let me try that actually. So you applied that mirror. Actually, I have to delete those shape keys then. Let me see how that goes. So you know, apply that, and what do you want to do then? Yes. It should be. It should be possible, and otherwise you can just link it up again. Well, you need to do the weight painting again. But you don't really need to cut it up. I'm not sure why you wanna cut it up. With mirror, without like the mirror modifier, you still be able to do the texture painting for two halves, because it will take the symmetry. It will take like the origin of your Totoro, which means that if I now just paint with white on this, I apply the modifier, it will still go in in like symmetry, right? So it doesn't really matter. But for the UVs, you just need to pretty much do it twice, right? For it, because that is something that is less annoying. Let's see if I can delete one part of this. I've never actually done that, so that's a good question. Let's delete that. And let's mirror it right back. I think the hairs are gonna be a little bit weird now though. And let's see. Where is my armature? There it is. So if I now go to pose mode, move my arms. Yeah, so that other part is now no longer linked because we have the mirror modifier on the end. So the least thing you have to do is move this all the way to the front again. All right, the modifier to be the first. And then let's go to pose mode and let's see what happens. All right, so it's still following the armature nicely. Because well, that's just one positive thing of working with modifiers. It is quite procedural, so it will take the first modifier and then apply the rest later, right? So the armature will be applied to that mirror object, right? So it will mirror the entire Totoro, and then it will apply that armature. So yeah, everything seems to be working fine. So that's nice. Let's see the let's see the fur. Let's see the fur. Should be fine. I'm not sure. Yeah. So the only thing that happens is that it doesn't really know how you groomed it anymore because you added you added a new geometry that wasn't there before. So you will need to go into particle settings and just delete the edit. I don't think you made the hair yet, right? So you just make sure that you do this before you add the hair, or just delete the edit and then just groom it again a little bit. You're welcome. Any more questions? No questions, I see. All right.
Nope.